Turkey such an important country on the Silk Road?
Well, I believe, of course, there is this historical perspective to that, but also in modern day, we see a very important and increasing trade between China and the European continent. There are a number of routes that connect these two big economies, and one of the most feasible, most historically proven route is the central route, where Turkey is the main country that is connecting Asia and Europe. We see Turkey or Anatolia in the past being the most important part of this road, Silk Road, in terms of bringing goods from China to the European continent, and it is still holding true for the day. As we see that maritime trade is taking an important part in terms of trade, we are seeing also the need to increase the land transport for these goods. When we look at the volume, as of today, Europe and China trades more than $1 billion worth of goods per day. And this is set to, or expected to, increase to $2 billion a day in the next decade. So there is a thinking in China and many countries between China and Europe to reconnect these continents through land structures, railroads, highways, and also some river passages. Turkey, in this sense, offers one of the most economically feasible alternative in the central corridor. So this is the reason why Turkey is an important actor in terms of Silk Road, ancient and modern day.
What are some of Turkey's contribution and influences on the Silk Road?
When we look at history, we see that Turkish cuisine is deeply influenced by the goods that are traded from China and in Silk Road. Tea is, as we call chai in Turkish, is one of the most important ingredients of the Turkish cuisine today. Of course, some spices such as cinnamon, ginger, turmeric, these are all what we have received from China and added into our cuisine. They are very essential. They are the most essential parts of Turkish cooking culture these days. But of course, it's not only about what we eat for our cuisine, but also we see, as you rightly put, the caravanserais. When you look at Anatolia, you can see these caravanserais where the merchants, the caravans of the day, and the merchants stop by to overnight and stay at a safe place. We have a number of architectural sites that we can also attribute to the Silk Road. One of the most mentioned ones in the world cultural history is Sardes in Izmir in western Turkey. And of course, when you look at the territories that the Ottomans, the Turks have governed, for instance, we see Nineveh and Babil. Now, of course, they are in Iraq, but these are also some other cultural heritage sites that are part of the historic Silk Road.
Now, I know Turkish hospitality is very well known, and tea and coffee is part of that. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
When you look at the statistics, Turkish people are ranked number one in terms of tea consumption per person. So in the world, Turkish people consume the most tea per person. We are also a producer. Of course, we have learned about tea through the Silk Road. It was not in our culture before, but now for a very long time, tea has become a liquid, a drink that we enjoy every hour of the day. So we start our breakfasts with a tea, we continue with the tea, and we of course end up with the tea even before we go to sleep. So we always drink tea, and and a Turkish house without the Turkish tea is always an incomplete one. That is how we consider. Of course, coffee is, we never forget about our coffee. We're proud of the Turkish coffee. We don't grow coffee, unfortunately. In the past, in the Ottoman times, we used to import coffee from Yemen. We now import it from various other countries, but it is the way we roast, and it is the way we schedule our day, actually. Even our breakfast is called the thing that we eat before our coffee. So even our breakfast is named with a relation with coffee. It is that important in Turkish culture. I have missed to mention the most important part of Turkey, and that is Istanbul. Istanbul is the city, is the biggest economic hub of Turkey. It connects Turkey to Europe. It is actually a city that connects two continents, Europe and Asia, and this historic ancient Silk Road and modern day Silk Road is going to use Istanbul as one of the most important corridors. Istanbul is ready for that because we have already completed underground and sea tunnels, railroads, railroad connections through bridges. We have invested a lot in our infrastructure in Istanbul. We have the biggest airport of the world actually is going to be operational by this October 2018, and seaports are in the phase of completion by the end of this year. Turkey, in terms of Silk Road, the modern day Silk Road, has made significant investments. And Istanbul, with all its history, culture, and modern day investments, again, its cultural contributions, is one of the best places to see in Turkey. You have mentioned Cappadocia. Cappadocia is my personal favorite. I have seen many places in Turkey, and I can confidently assure you that probably that is the only place in the world that you will see what a wind erosion can make out of a rocky structure. You can live in some caves, and Turkish people lived in those caves until the 1960s. You can grow grapes out of which you can make wine, and the early Christian people have done that, trying to evade the Mongolians. They have gone underground, built underground cities, grow their own grapes and made their wines, and you can keep cool in summer and keep warm in winter. That is a fascinating place. With the balloon rides of the day, you'll really like it. If you're into winter sports, Turkish Eastern resorts offer you wonderful opportunities. But my personal favorite in terms of seasons is summer, and you'll never be disappointed to see the Turkish Riviera, actually, the Mediterranean coast and the Aegean coast. You'll be very, very pleasantly surprised to see several places in these coasts.